Tonight's on Reporting Scotland, as speculation grows over the future of the Greens in government, party leaders urge members to stay. Also on tonight's programme, a woman is jailed for life for murdering schoolgirl Caroline Glachan almost 30 years ago. It means Caroline's mother, Margaret, finally sees all three of her daughter's killers sentenced.
It's like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and as I said before, it's no closure, it's justice. You don't get closure.
In sport, we reflect on the Scottish Cup semi-finals, which have set up the first Old Firm final in over 2 decades.
And meet the woman who's made history. Julie McElroy becomes the first female frame runner to finish the London Marathon. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. There are increasing tensions around the coalition deal between the SNP and the Greens in the Scottish Government. It stems from a row over transgender healthcare, which follows the Cass review into services in England and has led clinicians here to pause some treatments. There's also the matter of key climate change targets being scrapped. It will all come to a head next month when the Greens hold an extraordinary general meeting to vote on whether to remain in government, as our political correspondent Andrew Kerr reports.
The Greens marched in unison with the SNP at the weekend pro-independence rally, but could the two parties walk off in their own separate ways? Tensions erupted on Thursday when the SNP Greens Scottish Government ditched 2030 climate targets. A pause on the prescription of puberty blockers for young people seeking gender-affirming care was also announced. A protest was sparked. Trans healthcare is important for many party members. So they say there's been a culmination of issues, which has led to a special meeting to vote on the Bute House Agreement.
The way that things are is not working. And I think part of any kind of cooperation is that sometimes you need to sit down and renegotiate. I think that's normal and that's healthy. And I'm looking forward to seeing where we come to in the coming weeks.
The trans healthcare row has been focused on the Cass report, which the party co-convener Patrick Harvie was asked about yesterday.
Do you accept that the Cass report is a valid scientific document, a valid piece of research?
I've seen far too many criticisms of it so far
no.
to be able to say that.
Mr Harvie's been criticised for that, but he repeated today that he thought the report had been politicised. He also said the Greens had made a difference in government, as he urged his members to back the Bute House Agreement.
We need to continue to do more of that and demonstrate to our members that that's an agenda they can have confidence in delivering for Scotland. But really, my great concern would be that if we walk away from government at the moment, the opposite would happen.
But the Greens and the SNP are not regarded as fellow travellers by this SNP MSP and others.
I can understand the Greens being angry about the situation they find themselves in with the climate targets, and if I was them, I would be probably wanting to exit as well. And from the SNP's point of view, I don't think having the Greens in government has done us any favours either.
The First Minister said at the weekend how much he valued the agreement with the Greens, and one of his ministers emphasised partnership working today.
I think it's clear that the Scottish Government collectively, with both its SNP and Green members, that we remain steadfastly committed to the 2045 target.
The Greens will vote on whether to stay in government by the end of next month, probably online. The result could be hard to predict. They themselves emphasise their radical nature. Andrew Kerr, Reporting Scotland.
So, what is the background to this row and the developments around gender identity services, both here and in England? Well, it comes after a review of services down south by the paediatrician Dr Hilary Cass, published earlier this month. As the Scottish Government prepares to outline its response, our health correspondent Lisa Summers looks at the evidence.
Advancing trans rights was one of the principles behind the power-sharing deal between the SNP and the Greens. But now the debate around healthcare for children questioning their gender has become so political that it could bring an end to that partnership. It's expected that tomorrow the government will reflect on the implications of the Cass review for Scotland. Dr Cass's landmark report found children were being let down by what she called the toxicity of the political debate. Dr Cass said children needed better access to care, but the evidence was remarkably weak when it came to the use of medical interventions, such as puberty blockers.
The evidence base underlying all interventions that have been offered is really poor. And we've done a really comprehensive review of the evidence, and it is just not strong enough on which to make really good treatment decisions.
Now she's spoken of her anger about misinformation being presented in response to her work. The review analysed over 100 scientific papers on hormone use in treating under 18s. It said that only 2% of the studies were considered high quality. Some campaigners claim Dr Cass ignored the other 98% of the evidence, but she says that's not true and that 60% of the studies were good enough to be taken into account.
The review hasn't ignored evidence at all. I think there's perhaps differences of opinion about what constitutes evidence. People's lived experience and so on. That's valuable information if you're interested in what is somebody's lived experience. But if you're looking for evidence of clinical effectiveness, it's not particularly useful.
NHS Scotland has now gone further than England in pausing puberty blockers for children, and under 18s will no longer be prescribed gender-affirming hormones because the report points to a lack of long-term evidence on their use.
It's always been extremely challenging to find medical voices to comment on the science behind gender medicine because it's so controversial. For now, the Cass review is the best we have until further research is carried out. In the meantime, politicians from all sides will have their own personal views on this difficult debate.
Lisa Summers reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
The mother of murdered schoolgirl Caroline Glachan says she finally has justice, but the death of her daughter has left a void that can never be filled. Margaret McKeach spoke on the steps of the High Court in Glasgow as Donna Marie Brand was jailed for life for her part in the murder. Brand and 2 others were all found guilty of killing Caroline and dumping her body in the River Leven in West Dunbartonshire almost 30 years ago. Our reporter Katrina Renton was in court.
14-year-old Caroline Glachan was a popular schoolgirl. Her friends said she would light up a room. She was full of life and full of fun. On Sunday the 25th of August 1996, her body was found in the River Leven. Today, more than 27 years after her death, her mother finally has seen all 3 of her killers sentenced.
It's like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and as I said before, it's no closure. It's justice. You don't get closure. Closure's a thing that it's a void that will never be filled, so you don't get closure. But I'm pleased the way it went today, and I'm glad it's done.
In December, 45-year-old Robert O'Brien, who had been Caroline's boyfriend at the time, and 44-year-olds Donna Marie Brand and Andrew Kelly were convicted of Caroline's murder. In January, O'Brien and Kelly were jailed for a minimum of 22 and 18 years, respectively. Brand had been unfit to attend that hearing. She was sentenced today, appearing by video link.
Caroline was a popular teenager. Indeed, you say she was a friend of yours. As her mother, Margaret McKeach, puts it in her victim statement, she was a lover of life. Due in part to you, Caroline has been deprived of the opportunity of living that life, of developing into an adult, forming relationships, having children, fulfilling the potential which she evidently had, and of continuing to enjoy life as she clearly did.
Caroline lived with her mum in Bonhill in West Dunbartonshire. On the evening of Saturday the 24th of August 1996, Caroline went out to meet O'Brien at the River Leven. She told her friend Joanne she would be back before her mum got home. Her mum had been out celebrating her 40th birthday, which was the next day. Caroline never returned. Nearly 30 years would pass before justice was done. After many appeals, it transpired the answer was there all along. Little Archie Wilson, who was then 4 years old, was being babysat by the then teenagers. O'Brien was in a relationship with Brand as well as Caroline. Archie had told his mum they'd taken him to the river. Archie's mum went to the police. A re-investigation in 2019 finally brought the answers that were able to corroborate Archie's account.
Lord Braid told Brand that he accepted she played a lesser role than the others in the assault on Caroline, but he said the fact remains you share equal responsibility by leaving Caroline face down on the river while she was still alive. He sentenced her to a minimum of 17 years in jail before she can be considered for parole.
Caroline's mum said for her and Caroline's dad, we're serving a sentence as well, only ours doesn't come to an end. Only we don't get parole. Katrina Renton reporting Scotland at the High Court in Glasgow.
A proposed law to ban protests outside abortion clinics has received backing from MSPs on Holyrood's Health Committee. So-called buffer zones would prevent gatherings taking place within 200 metres of hospitals and clinics. But the committee acknowledged different views among its members on the issue of silent prayer. Katie Hunter reports.
So we're really getting a range of experiences.
When Alice Murray went for an abortion, she was surprised to see people who oppose abortions outside the clinic.
Having to run the gauntlet past these protesters was not something I expected. And then actually experiencing that, it's really traumatising, I think, for anyone going through any healthcare procedure. And one of my big worries is that people would actually be put off of going to clinics. You know, we've heard from people, and we have testimonies from young women who say they wouldn't even enter the clinic door.
Children can be slaughtered.
Alice has campaigned for new laws designed to ban gatherings like this within 200 metres of buildings offering abortions. Now a group of MSPs say they support the general principles of a bill to bring in so-called buffer zones so women can access healthcare without harassment and undue influence. But the Health Committee says there are different views among its members when it comes to silently praying outside hospitals like this. The MSP behind the bill says silent prayer should not be exempt.
We've heard from people who have attended hospitals for appointments that silent judgment and observation and that invasion of privacy can be just as intimidating as people with signs and loudhailers and other things as well. And very rarely are these protests in Scotland silent and not joined by another factor such as signs.
The committee found it could be difficult for police to decide whether a law has been broken by people silently praying.
I was arrested and taken to the police station and locked in a cell for a while.
Isabel Vaughan Spruce says she was arrested and then acquitted for silently praying outside an abortion clinic in England.
I think that silent prayer cannot possibly be a crime. We can't start criminalising people for their silent thoughts. And those who are there silently praying certainly don't pose any threat to women. They're actually praying for their well-being.
The Health Committee says silent prayer will need further consideration. MSPs are expected to debate and vote on the bill next week to decide whether it reaches the next stage. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
There's been mixed news for the offshore wind sector in Scotland. Consent has been given for what will be the largest floating wind farm in the world off the coast of Peterhead, but plans to build a much bigger fixed wind farm in the outer Firth of Forth have just missed an important deadline. Well, environment correspondent Kevin Keane joins us now. Kevin, this big Berwick Bank project, first of all, why has that deadline been missed?
Well, Laura, we don't know exactly, but it is a big and complex project, 4.1 gigawatts, enough electricity to power 4 million homes, almost twice the number of households here in Scotland. And when it goes live by the end of this decade, it will be the largest wind farm anywhere in the world. But SSE, the energy giant behind it, had hopes to have ministerial consent in place in time for a bidding process to get access to the electricity market, and the deadline for that for this year passed on Friday, so they're going to have to wait another year before they can consider bidding again. Now, the energy sector, the renewable sector, has been growing increasingly concerned about the amount of time it takes to come up with consent, 17 months in this case, and they say that, along with uncertainty about the future following the decision last week to scrap an interim target for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, really do impact the amount of investor certainty that is needed.
The two key parameters that we need to have that investor confidence is one, a stable and supportive policy environment, which, as we saw last week, we had a slight wobble in that. The other key thing is that timely consenting. If investors are going to put money into these projects, and these are billion-pound investments, they do need to know when those projects are going to come to fruition.
But Kevin, better news for another project, this time off Peterhead.
Yeah, this is the Greenvolt offshore floating wind farm. It will be the largest floating wind farm anywhere in the world when it goes live. 0.5 gigawatt of electricity, so much smaller than Berwick Bank, but still the largest floating development. And it will principally be used to power offshore oil and gas installations. So again, that's to help decarbonise the production process, and any excess electricity will come onto the land and be used in the grid. So yes, a day of mixed news. Good news for that floating wind farm, but SSE hoping that they'll get a decision on Berwick Bank by the summer.
OK, Kevin in Aberdeen, thank you. Now, you might remember Julie McElroy. We spoke to her a few weeks ago about her preparations for the London Marathon. She has cerebral palsy and runs with the aid of a frame. Well, yesterday, she crossed the finish line and became the first ever female frame runner to complete the event, as Phil McDonald reports.
This was the moment that Julie McElroy made history. The first female frame runner to complete the London Marathon. She's been reflecting on her achievement.
I don't think anything could prepare me for the London Marathon. It was just that after a real experience, you could never prepare yourself to run the London Marathon. It was absolutely mob.
Julie completed the course in just under 6 hours with the help of a support team who were backing her every step of the way.
I knew that she was so close to this, managing to get under 6 hours, and she sprinted. I watched Jill try to keep up with her. She sprinted, and we're just all so proud of her.
6 years ago, Julie suffered a traumatic injury that left her in chronic pain. 3 years later, she started frame running.
Go, 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 go.
Preparing for street races has proved particularly challenging.
Julie does all of her training on the track, and the frame runner's designed to go generally in a straight line. But the nearest you could probably get to prepare for it would be Sauchiehall Street on a busy Saturday afternoon.
Having now conquered the London Marathon, Julie is taking some time before deciding on her next challenge.
Interesting question, I don't know what next. I do want to keep being running further, but I don't know how far I can take it yet.
Phil McDonald, reporting Scotland.
Well done to her. Drama and emotion down in London, Amy, but drama and emotion up here too.
Oh, and plenty of it over the weekend. Thanks very much, Laura. Hello there. It was an action-packed weekend at Hampden as the final four sides in the Scottish Cup faced off at Hampden. And for the first time in 22 years, the final will be contested by Celtic and Rangers to set up a dramatic finale on the 25th of May. Here's a reminder of how all unfolded. It started early on Saturday as a spirited Aberdeen performance saw them level in the final stages of the 90 minutes. And then, after goals from Matt O'Reilly and Angus MacDonald in extra time, the game went all the way to penalties. Joe Hart with the decisive save after missing from the spot himself to send Celtic to a 6th Scottish Cup final in the last 8 seasons.
Yeah, I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves, to be honest. You know, I'm going to give you the boring answer. It is a game at a time kind of thing. We'll enjoy this win. Definitely could have been, I don't know, we could have had a lot more control than we did, so a lot to improve on, to be honest, but job done, just about.
I knew they had it in them. I thought we were great today. Thinking back with chances, very good chances against a very good Celtic team, so listen, gutted, but I'm proud of the players.
It was then over to Rangers and Hearts yesterday for a spot alongside Brendan Rodgers' team in the final. A Cyril Dessers double was the difference at the National Stadium as Philippe Clement's side ran out 2-0 winners against Hearts to set up that first Old Firm final since 2002. For Dessers, it's reinforced the desire to win everything they possibly can this season, with the League Cup already secured. While for the Hearts boss, it was an opportunity missed in what's been a largely successful season for the Tynecastle club.
If you look at the last months, we showed what we're capable of, and I think it's just the thing to find this vibe back, and if we can find that rhythm back, I think then we're the best team in the league, and hopefully we can show that in the next games. I think all together we can do this.
From the summer till now, we've came a long way. We've changed the way we play. We're doing a lot of things differently, and we've made good progress. That calmness comes in big moments. You need it. Today wasn't our day to have it, but the players will learn from it. We're a young squad. We've done loads of good stuff. These moments hurt because we feel it's a missed opportunity.
Scotland midfielder Stuart Armstrong has a big chance to be fit for Euro 2024, according to his Southampton manager Russell Martin. He was taken off on a stretcher while playing against Cardiff City. Martin said after the game that it was a bad one. However, Martin gave an update on the 32-year-old today and said that even though he's unlikely to return for his club this season, he was positive about this summer's Euros. Yeah, that could be big news for Steve Clarke. To the Championship now then, and Dundee United have all but sealed a return to the top flight after a 1-0 win over Ayr United moved them 6 points clear at the top of the table with just 2 games left to play. The Tangerines have a far superior goal difference to second place Raith Rovers, and Saturday's win sparked wild celebrations in the stands and on the pitch as well. It can now be officially wrapped up on Friday night when they face Airdrie. One league that was secured was the Highland League. Buckie Thistle claimed their first silverware in 7 years, winning by goal difference on what was a very dramatic final day. It rounds off a memorable campaign for the club, who played at Celtic Park in the Scottish Cup earlier this season and now face a League Two playoff semi-final against East Kilbride.
Celtic was unbelievable, but this cannot be beat. This cannot be beat. Like I said, I think this is the best. I've won 4. This is the best one because of what we went through, and this team deserved it. And the pressure that was on us, and being favourites on the last day. This is the best feeling I've had in football.
I'm sure it was. Celtic maintained their 2-point lead at the top of the SWPL table after a 5-0 victory over Hearts yesterday. Title rivals Rangers beat Partick Thistle 3-1 earlier in the day to close in on the league leaders, but Murphy Agnew's hat-trick in front of the home crowd at Celtic Park secured all 3 points and restored the gap to 2 points at the top of the table.
Yeah, job done, and obviously it's a good thing to be at Celtic Park. It's nice to play like where we are at home, because this is where we are every day. So score 5 goals, maybe should have scored 1 more. Overall, like clean sheet. I thought we controlled the game like from the start to the end, so really happy with that.
To rugby now, Scotland ended a 25-year wait for victory on Italian soil as they moved third in the Women's Six Nations. Emma Orr put Scotland in front before Chloe Rowley notched a brilliant try to put the Scots 10 points ahead. The Italians scored a late penalty, but it finished 17-10 to Brian Eason's side. They're now third. And if they can finish there, they will qualify for the World Cup. Up next for them is a trip to take on Ireland. Now, Glasgow Warriors assistant coach Nigel Carolan says his side must be ruthless when they travel to play bottom of the table Zebre on Saturday as they target a successful end to their United Rugby Championship season. Glasgow currently sits second in the table, just 1 point behind leaders Leinster after a 21-10 victory over Sharks on Friday night. Assistant coach Carolan says they mustn't underestimate Zebre this weekend.
You've got to give them the respect, particularly at home, that they deserve. They're a team that's gritty. They're fighting now for, again, just to stay off the bottom of the table. And you know what, our goals are slightly different. As I said, they're fighting to stay off the top of the table. We're trying to fight to get on the top of the table, but it doesn't make them any less dangerous. And it's very important that we have a standard and we maintain that right throughout the game. We don't get loose. We don't try things that are outside of our norm, and we need to be really patient. We need to be patient at trying to create chances, but when we get the chances, we need to also be ruthless.
And finally, Gary Anderson ended a 10-year wait for a European title, beating Ross Smith in an absorbing final in Germany. Muscle Brothers Anderson won 8-6 to secure the PDC European Darts Grand Prix in what was just his 4th European Tour event since bringing a 7-year hiatus from the circuit to an end in 2023. What an achievement, Laura. Just so much to celebrate from the weekend.
Absolutely, quite the weekend of sport.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
OK, now let's go over to Laura McKeever to find out what's happening on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock.
We'll be live at Westminster as the Prime Minister says his Rwanda bill will be approved by Parliament tonight. No ifs, no buts. Also, we'll have the latest as Donald Trump's hush money trial gets underway. And Anne Wood, the Scottish violinist who's played with bands including Deacon Blue, tells us about her new show inspired by the search for her Pakistani father. We'll see you at 9.
Now let's take a look at the weather with Judith. Take me to John O'Groats.
Oh, and it wasn't. I mean, it's lovely to see blue skies, isn't it? We feel we've been starved of that for so long, and you can feel the warmth now, can't you?
Can you? Can you?
Maybe not where you live, but yes, in Glasgow we certainly started to feel some warmth. Thank you very much. And in fact, it was dry enough for this fella to enjoy being out and about in Glencoe earlier on today. Now let's take a wee look at the pressure chart to see what's going on. So we have high pressure throwing a protective arm right around Scotland, keeping our weather largely dry, keeping all these Atlantic weather systems out of the way, protecting us from all that rain we've seen off late. So a lot of dry weather in the forecast this week, and tonight's no different. The last of a weather front clearing away from the south, taking thicker cloud and showery rain with it. Some late sunshine leading to lengthy clear spells right across the country as we head through the night, cloud melting away. And it will be cold enough for a touch of frost through the Central Highlands and the Southern Highlands. Just be aware of that, gardeners and growers. Similar tomorrow night as well, but a chilly night really everywhere. So into tomorrow morning, it's a cold start, but a dry start with some early sunshine. In fact, a lovely start to the day, but cool, fresh feel first thing as you step out the door. As we head through the day, we'll see bits and pieces of cloud drifting in across the Northern Isles, and that's thanks to a cool or cold northerly flow that will be with us over the next couple of days, keeping our temperatures, repressing them across northern and parts of eastern Scotland. Some cloud floating in and out with that breeze as well, with temperatures 12 Celsius for Edinburgh, down towards the borders 13, but with shelter from that wind we should see 16 around the Glasgow area. Maybe a wee bit of fair weather cloud bubbling up, not spoiling what will be a lovely spring day. And similarly up towards the west now, just a bit of cloud drifting in here at times. Into tomorrow evening, any cloud tends to melt away, then some late sunshine, again clear spells as we head through the overnight period. We'll start to see a drift of cloud pushing in across the Northern Isles and parts of the northeast and the eastern borders by the time we reach Wednesday morning. I think a bit more cloud generally across eastern Scotland, but dry with spells of sunshine, and temperature-wise just a wee bit cooler than we'll see tomorrow. As far as the rest of the week goes, there's more of a shower risk certainly across northern Scotland. The winds stay pretty light actually, but temperature-wise it's on the cool side. The driest conditions through central and southern parts. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Judith. Now tonight's main news again. The Scottish Greens are meeting next month to vote on whether to remain in government with the SNP. And a woman has been jailed for at least 17 years for the murder of schoolgirl Caroline Glachan almost 30 years ago. Donna Marie Brand was convicted in December, along with 2 other men. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. In the meantime, from all of us here, enjoy your evening. Good night.